Hello, Grumpy Old Garage Gamer here, and in this video we're going to be painting a Necromunda style base using only a brush and a makeup sponge. If you like the video, please subscribe to the channel. Let's get painting. So we're going to paint three bases, 40mm, 32mm and 25mm Necromunda base. This will work for Into the Dark bases, for Kill Team, or any spaceship bases really. Firstly, I undercoated the bases with a standard grey by Colourforge. It's my go-to paint for undercoating, works really well. First thing we're going to do though, after that, is give it a base of standard Mechanicus Grey by Citadel. So load up some paint onto your brush, make sure it's thinned down so you don't clog all the detail. Here I'm using an old Citadel medium dry brush. I tend to go through a lot of dry brushes and always have an old one lying around. I find that it's great for doing bases and scenery. You don't have to worry if the tips of the brush is going to get ruined by poking and prodding to getting into all the gaps. It's better than using your nice basing brush or your nice expensive brush to start with. So just make sure you don't get any clumped up pieces in the gaps. Next we're going to stipple with a sponge. Now this is a makeup sponge, roughly about 1 inch in diameter. First of all, moisten the end, make sure that it's not wet but just moist. If you think it is a little bit too wet, just dab it on a kitchen towel to dry it out. Then we're going to get some Administratum Grey by Citadel, and we're going to block the excess off a bit like dry brushing, but not getting rid of all the paint. Then we are just going to dab directly down from above onto the model. Now what this does is it highlights all the flat areas, all the raised areas, and all the flat areas that are recessed into the base, but leaving the corners and all the little grooves with the base colour. It's my way essentially of cheating at airbrush highlighting. Now you could do this with a dry brush, but I find that it leaves quite a messy appearance, whereas doing this little cheat with a sponge makes the areas nice and highlighted and even, and it gets good coverage all over. You could see in that little cross section it even picks up those 4 little flat points where the grooves intersect. If you do like this video, then please consider subscribing to my channel. I've got loads of videos in mind that I'm going to do. My aim here is to basically use brushes, sponges and no airbrush. Wait for it to dry and then just go over it again if you think you need more coverage. That's what I've done here. I tend to find that if you start sponging over slightly drying paint, the sponge will start to lift off the paint that you've already put on. So just do a second coat, it doesn't take long to dry at all. And you'll see it gets a nice even coverage. Now we are going to do some dry brushing using a brand new Citadel medium dry brush, and we're going to go directly over the edges to highlight all the panelling. I'm using a 50-50 mix of Ulthan Grey and Pallid Witch Flesh, and I haven't got much on at all, and I'm just very lightly brushing it over the edges, being really gentle. As you can see, the edges start to catch the paint and the highlight begins to appear. Now I'm not a professional painter in any way. I've always said this, it's just how I do things, how I found the best way to do things, and I find you just start off lightly, and when you get comfortable with the paint you can go a little bit harder, get into all the grooves if necessary, and then you'll get a good edge highlight all over the base. And you can see the 3 colours we've put on so far, nicely defined. You could leave it here if you wanted a clean sci-fi base as well, but we're going to obviously make it dirtier. So now we're just going to add some chipping and some wear and tear. I use 2 colours for this. The first one is lead belcher, to get that metal underneath showing, and I just blot it on with a sponge and just randomly place it where you think you'd like it to go. Make sure you catch the edges of the base as well, don't just focus in the middle. Just make sure you don't have too much paint loaded on the sponge. Take your time, you don't want to put a massive blotch of lead belcher all over, and when you think you've got it looking how you want it, we move on to the next chipping. It takes a few moments to dry. Now this I use Rhinox hide. It's quite common for this colour paint to be used for chipping effects, and it just works really well. It brings a darker definition to the chipping. I tend to go over the areas where I've had the most build up of lead belcher and then some other random areas, and as you can see the base is starting already to look worn and scuffed, and as if it hasn't just had a fresh coat of paint. Just take your time and remember less is more. Now that's dried, doesn't take very long at all. We're going to dirty the whole base down, and we're going to use Nuln Oil. So we're just going to apply it into all the recesses and the crevices, making sure we get good coverage over the entire base. I'm using a synthetic Citadel medium wash brush. You can use any brush to slap your wash on. I find you don't need specialist brushes, but this one I'm using here. Well, I'm just making sure the wash gets into all the corners. So I've turned the base around so the wash can get into all the creases that I may have missed from just doing it in one direction. Once you're happy with the wash and the full coverage over the base, then I just go in and pick out all the pooled areas of Nuln Oil, because I don't want it to build up in all those gaps and crevices. It's going to get dirtier as we go on with the painting. And then with a moist brush, a clean moist brush, I just wipe away any excess that's on the flat surfaces, because I want that colour of the Standard Mechanicus grey, the Administratum grey, and the edge highlighting to kind of show through. It's going to get darker later, so making sure that these panels are nice and clear and clean now will help. You can always load it up and just keep it really dark and grungy if you want, just to suit your taste. Once you're happy that you've cleaned off as much Nuln Oil as you want, we move on to the next stage. And now it's dry, we are going to sponge on some rust. Now I have tried many different ways to do this, and I've got a varied amount of paints and tools for adding rust. But for this I found Fire Dragon Bright by Citadel, and stippling with a sponge is the best way to get a random chipping effect. I put quite a little bit more than I wanted to on that part of the base, but I've left it because I wanted to show how later the colour will dull down as we add some washes on. But just as before, like the chipping, I randomly place the orange and I try to put it into the dark areas where I've put the lead belcher and the rhinox hide, but I also just add it where I feel comfortable, making sure you add it to the edges as well. Just less is more. Now we're going to use a watered down Skag Brown layer paint by Citadel. I do like 1 part Skag Brown to about 8 parts water. Needs to be a really thin consistency. And what we do is I believe it's called a pin wash or a panel wash. Essentially just carefully placing it into the gaps and the angles. I've rotated the base so I can easily apply it to the areas where I want it, and I do long strokes, not just little dots, just to cover the area. As it dries it will contract slightly and it will darken. Just take your time. If you find that you put a little bit too much on, just wipe your brush off and wick away any excess. You can always put some more on afterwards. I make sure I get into all the corners. And here you can see I'm using the stippling of the Fire Dragon Bright to highlight the areas where I want to put the pin wash of Skag Brown. Just take your time. I find it quite therapeutic. You can see already it's starting to look all aged and rusty. Those initial 3 colours have darkened down and getting more grim, dark, grungy. Once that's dry, you can see that it's darkened down. Now we're going to go in with a same mix of the original Fire Dragon Bright. This is just to get some lighter rust colours done, and I'm going to be a little bit more careful where I apply this. I'm just going to put it into the centre of where I used the Skag Brown, and I've just painted over the original large rust patch that I did before. You'll see that darken down later, so obviously that one's had a good bit of rusting going on. Again, like the previous one, take your time doing the wash. Pick out all the points where you want it. If you do end up applying too much, then just wipe off your brush and draw the paint off the base or the model. It's very therapeutic doing this. Nice and relaxing. Good time to listen to your favourite audiobook. And we're just about done. As you can see, that's darkened down considerably. Now I go over the entire model with Reikland Flesh Shade. You can use Agrax Earthshade wash if you want, but I find that can darken it down a little bit too much. If you caught that little comment before, you'll notice that this is a completely different base, because when I was recording I messed up and the whole thing was out of focus. So I had to quickly go and paint up another base and get to this stage so I could record it. As with the Nuln Oil, make sure you get into all the recesses. If it's pooling too much, just dry your brush off, stab it in and wick away any excess. Just make sure you give a good coverage and you don't leave any bits out. Then damp your bristles and just wipe off the excess wash from the top, just so we can see that lovely grey colour and all the rusting and the chipping below. If you do want a darker coloured base, then you can leave it on and it will just look dirtier, but I like to have it with a clean surface so the colour shows through. And there we go. So that's all 3 bases now dry and painted, and I think personally look really good, ready for Necromunda, Into the Dark, Space Hulk. One last thing we need to do though, paint those rims. I always use Abaddon Black, it just finishes off the model, but I won't bore you with painting those here. We'll just skip to the final result. And here it is. I think they look really good. It's really simple. All brushes and a sponge. No airbrushing. No fancy paints. Just simple painting and techniques, and it gives you a really good base. And they match really well with bases I've previously painted. I just use the same technique and the same colour scheme, and you get a really good collection.